Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. For those utilizing ASL interpretation services, our two interpreters today are Andrea Lamberton and Erica Algrande. The display names are on the screen as ASL interpreter Sign Nexus, Andrea, and ALS interpreter Sign Nexus, Erica. For those utilizing, if you'd like to get captions for those videos, the instructions will be in the chat. Thank you all very much.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Arva Rice. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the interim chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. I would like to call the CCRB's February public board meeting to order. Would the board please introduce themselves now, and we will start with Pat.
Pat Smith, mayoral appointee, Manhattan.
Dave Hogan, City Council designee, South Jamaica, Queens.
Frank Dwyer, Police Commissioner designee.
Herman Merritt, City Council designee from Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, Charlene Brown Wyans, Police Commissioner designee.
Good evening. My name's John Dorsch. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the executive director of the CCRB.
John Siegel, I'm one of the mayoral appointees.
Esmeralda Simmons, Public Advocate appointee from Brooklyn, New York.
Hi, Joe Fox. I'm a Police Commissioner designee.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Kevin Jamont, mayoral appointee from Queens.
And we also have somebody joining us. Mr. Puma, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Puma. I go by he, him pronouns, and I'm the City Council designee from the Borough of Manhattan.
Thank you.
Afternoon, June Northern, mayoral appointee from Brooklyn.
Thank you, June. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the February board meeting minutes.
Move for the approval of the February board meeting minutes.
And can I have a second? Thank you. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? If not, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye. All those opposed, the minutes are approved. I'd also like to ask for a motion to approve the March board meeting minutes.
So moved.
And can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 All those opposed, the minutes are approved as presented. This past Sunday marked the 5-year anniversary of Kowalski Trawick's death at the hands of officers Thompson and Davis. 5 years ago, Mr. Trawick called 911 for help to get back into his apartment. The fire department came, helped him, and left without incident. Officers Thompson and Davis arrived minutes later, drove around the block, took their time to find parking, and spoke to the staff at the assisted living facility where Mr. Trawick lived. The officers knew it was a sensitive location and acknowledged that Mr. Trawick might be classified as what NYPD calls an emotionally disturbed person. Officers Thompson and Davis walked up to Mr. Trawick's floor, approached his door, and 112 seconds later, Kowalski was on the floor, shot by Officer Thompson 3 times. Officers Davis and Thompson left Mr. Trawick on the floor, closed the door, and didn't call for help. After Mr. Trawick was killed, the Bronx DA determined they did not have enough evidence to prosecute the officers for criminal conduct. The NYPD conducted its own internal investigation where they interviewed the officers for less than 30 minutes and did not ask them any questions about the footage in question. When the officers made misleading statements that did not match the footage, nothing was done. They failed to find any misconduct by either officer. The CCRB received a complaint and requested evidence and body-worn camera footage from NYPD, but did not receive anything for over 18 months. Despite the interference, the CCRB investigation established that both officers improperly entered Kowalski's home, that Officer Thompson improperly tased Mr. Trawick, that Officer Thompson improperly shot Mr. Trawick 4 times, and that both officers failed to get Mr. Trawick medical attention while they left him dying on the floor of his apartment. The NYPD's refusal to release the evidence in this matter meant that when the CCRB's prosecutors filed charges against Mr. Trawick, they had to use the crime exception to the statute of limitations. Using the crime exception imposed added requirements on the prosecution, which Executive Director John Darsh will explain in more detail shortly. In addition to having to prove that the officers violated the NYPD patrol guide, we had to prove that they broke criminal law. Our talented and dedicated prosecutors rose to the challenge, and they did just that. But the NYPD trial commissioner who presided over this case blamed the CCRB for the delays in this case and refused to hold the officers accountable. She did, however, concede that the NYPD investigation ignored sections of the patrol guide and left her with disquieting questions about how they could have cleared the officers' conduct. This past Friday, just before the 5th anniversary of Kowalski's death, the NYPD announced the police commissioner's decision to endorse the trial commissioner's flawed recommendation. The Trawick family was not informed of the decision in advance and heard the decision through the media. Had NYPD conducted a legitimate investigation and held their officers accountable, Kowalski's family could have avoided the last 5 years of fighting for justice and would not have had to sit through a trial watching their son being killed over and over again. To their credit, the NYPD recognized that their delays in this case were obstructing the disciplinary process and many other investigations, and both agencies agreed to a policy which limited the NYPD to 90 days to respond to the CCRB's request for evidence. While this MOU is an excellent start, it is not enough to ensure that we have comprehensive police accountability. Last month, Executive Director Darsh and I testified before the City Council, and we asked for a historic $37.7 million budget for the CCRB. The CCRB has been chronically underfunded since its inception. In the last several years, the board, the City Council, and the people of New York have voted to expand the CCRB's jurisdiction and increase its responsibilities. This included investigating racial profiling and bias-based policing, body-worn camera misuse, sexual misconduct, untruthful statements, and more. Instead of receiving more funds to hire the investigators and secure the resources we need to complete these cases efficiently in a timely manner, we face budget cuts. For the first time, the CCRB has not had a sufficient budget to investigate allegations within its jurisdiction. I would like to thank the City Council, who last week publicly supported the CCRB's request for a $5 million increase. We hope that the Office of Management and Budget will support the CCRB and the City Council to ensure that all components of public safety are adequately funded in the city. For people to trust in the police, they must have faith that there is a system that holds police officers responsible for misconduct. The CCRB is an unbiased, independent civilian voice in the police disciplinary system, and failing to adequately fund the CCRB shortchanges public safety in the city. I will now pass it to Executive Director Jonathan Darsh, who will explain the crime exception rule in more detail. John?
Thank you, Chair. The crime exception to the statute of limitations is often misunderstood. I'm going to attempt to explain it to you all now. New York State Civil Service Law, Section 75, establishes the statute of limitations for disciplinary actions against members of the NYPD as 18 months from the date of the incident. The only exception to this is also found in Section 75. Such limitations shall not apply where the incompetency or misconduct complained of and described in the charges would, if proved in a court of appropriate jurisdiction, constitute a crime. We refer to that language as the crime exception to the statute of limitations. When the CCRB brings charges under the crime exception, it adds to the CCRB's burden, as the agency must prove the elements of a crime that constitutes the alleged misconduct. This also means the CCRB must disprove the defenses available to that crime. What doesn't change is the burden of proof, which is a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. In criminal court, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm going to focus on a single specification from the trial against the 2 officers who killed Kowalski Trawick. Specification 6 against Police Officer Thompson, to illustrate how the crime exception works. Specification 6 alleges that Police Officer Brendan Thompson, on or about April 14th, 2019, at approximately 2300 hours, while assigned to the 46th Precinct and on duty in the vicinity of 1616 Grand Avenue, Bronx County, wrongfully used force in that with intent to cause physical injury to Kowalski Tyrone Trawick, Officer Thompson caused such injury by intentionally firing a dart from a conducted electrical weapon into Kowalski Tyrone Trawick without police necessity. If you were to have the charges in front of you, you would note that the CCRB listed the appropriate patrol guide sections 22108, use of a conducted electrical weapon, and 22102, use of force, underneath that particular specification. The CCRB also listed Penal Law Section 120.05, assault in the second degree, subsection 2. A person is guilty of assault in the second degree when, with intent to cause physical injury to another person, they cause such injury to such person or to a third person by means of a deadly weapon or a dangerous instrument. The CCRB presented evidence that proved every element of assault in the second degree. Article 10 of the New York State Penal Law defines physical injury as impairment of physical condition or substantial pain. A taser or a conducted electrical weapon delivers 50,000 volts of electricity into a person's body. It overrides a person's central nervous system and causes uncontrollable muscle contraction. The preponderance of the evidence, based upon our knowledge of what a taser does and Mr. Trawick's reaction to being shot with the taser on the body-worn camera footage of Police Officer Thompson, indicates that this action caused Mr. Trawick substantial pain. New York State's penal law definition of a deadly weapon does not include tasers, but the penal law defines a dangerous instrument as any instrument, article, or substance, including a vehicle, which under the circumstances in which it is used, is attempted to be used, or is threatened to be used, is readily capable of causing death or other serious physical injury. We already determined a taser can cause physical injury, but can it cause death or serious physical injury? New York State penal law defines a serious physical injury as one that creates a substantial risk of death, or which causes death, or serious and protracted disfigurement, protracted impairment of health, protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily organ. Between 2010 and 2021, more than 500 people in the United States were killed by police officers using tasers. The NYPD Patrol Guide also states the following about tasers. Members should consider that the exposure to the CEW for longer than 15 seconds, whether due to multiple applications or continuous cycling, may increase the risk of death or serious injury. If prolonged use of the taser increases the risk of death, that implies the regular use carries with it a risk of death. Put more plainly, if a vehicle can be a dangerous instrument, then clearly a taser is a dangerous instrument. Finally, respondents have the opportunity to use all of the defenses available to them under the penal law. In the trial commissioner's decision, they stated that the respondents could invoke the justification defense under Penal Law Section 35.15, Subdivision 1. The justification defense reads, a person may use physical force upon another person when, and to the extent he or she reasonably believes such to be necessary to defend himself, herself, or a third person from what he or she reasonably believes to be the use or imminent use of unlawful physical force by such other person, unless the latter's conduct was provoked by the actor with the intent to cause physical injury to another person, or the actor was the initial aggressor. except in such case the use of physical force is nevertheless justifiable if the actor has withdrawn from the encounter and effectively communicated such withdrawal to such other person, but the latter persists in continuing the incident by the use or threatened imminent use of unlawful physical force. The fact that Police Officer Thompson is a member of the NYPD does not eliminate the initial aggressor exception to his eligibility for the justification defense. Let's examine the evidence presented at trial. Police Officer Davis and Police Officer Thompson entered Mr. Trawick's home in an assisted living facility for individuals with mental health challenges. Mr. Trawick was cooking in his studio apartment and was holding a knife when the officers entered his apartment. Almost immediately upon entering the apartment, Police Officer Thompson drew his taser. Mr. Trawick made no threats, but Police Officer Thompson hit him with a taser. Mr. Trawick made no motion toward the officers to suggest he was about to use physical force, but Police Officer Thompson hit him with the taser. Mr. Trawick was not physically resisting either Police Officer Thompson or Police Officer Davis, but Police Officer Thompson decided to put 50,000 volts of electricity into Mr. Trawick. Mr. Trawick genuinely had no idea why the police were there, because the fire department had already resolved the issue that had caused him to call 911. And rather than take the time to explain what had happened, Police Officer Thompson hit him with a taser. Police Officer Thompson completely ignored the de-escalation training given by the department and the requirements of the patrol guide when he fired the taser at Mr. Trawick. Even the trial commissioner, in her decision, referred to police officer's decision to fire the taser as tactically premature. Police Officer Davis testified he would not have fired his own taser at Mr. Trawick. And in fact, Police Officer Davis did not fire the taser. All of those factors point to the fact that Police Officer Thompson was the initial aggressor. It is clear that the preponderance of the evidence rebuts the respondent's claim that the use of the taser was justified. The CCRB is committed to making as much of the material from the trial as possible available on our website so that the public can review the matter, review the evidence, and determine whether or not Police Officer Thompson was guilty of Specification 6. The public will be able to make their own determination whether Police Officer Davis and Police Officer Thompson committed misconduct by a preponderance of the evidence. And the public will be able to determine whether justice was served.
Does the board have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you make your
I can
reminders?
answer questions about that and then I'll finish up.
Does the board have any questions?
Is there any further course of action to be taken here?
I don't believe so. I think the family might have their own civil case, but there's nothing that the city can do now.
Is there anything for this body to be doing here?
No.
Okay.
Well, we'll be making the materials available on our website.
And what is the point of making those materials available if there is no course of action for this body to undertake?
So I think under our procedures, we're trying since Civil Rights Law 58 has been repealed, to make as much information about what our investigations determine public. And so now that the matter is closed, that's what we'll do. We're not treating this case special.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Did you?
What that last thing, that we're not treating this case special?
We're not making an exception to the making the materials public.
Okay,
This is
All
what
right.
we did.
okay. Was there a possibility to refile this under a racial bias or or prejudicial policing at the time when Traywick was a young black man, correct?
Yes.
And when because I believe that the approach inside the apartment would have been a lot different if he was not a young black man. And so if we can't go forward with what we went forward with already, could we look at it another way? Because it seems to be such an injustice to the family. One, that it's been 5 years, and two, the way they found out about it. And if there's any way that we could, I don't know why the federal government has not looked at this case. And so is there any way that we can look at it, charging these police officers from this board through bias policing and racial profiling?
The staff and I have discussed that. We have not seen an angle where that is possible, but we can revisit and report back to the board on that question.
Following up on AU, is it possible that this board votes to call on the Justice Department to pursue a civil rights investigation here, as they have done in other cases around the country, when the local municipalities have acted inappropriately or failed to act? The Justice Department steps in and revisits this as a civil rights violation. Can this board go on the record as calling on the Justice Department to do that? Something that we are actually doing something to express our obvious disagreement with what the city has done here.
And if not, why not?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Excuse me.
So the truth is, I would want to do more research and get the general counsel's feedback on that to make sure I'm giving the board accurate information. I don't have an answer right now.
Because John, I don't want it to set a particular precedent that these things aren't anomalies. I mean, these things, if they're accepted once, they reoccur. And so how do we make sure that these things don't reoccur, in this municipality?
Right.
That definitely was erroneous in them looking at the case. They definitely was lethargic the time that it took for them to even consider. Because all the things that I was hearing, through the case as it was going along, that NYPD took as long as they wanted to even look at the case. And then by the time we get to the case, we almost can't fight for this young man and his family who lost his life senselessly.
I hear what you're saying, AU, and I will talk with the general counsel and get a actually informed legal opinion rather than making one up right here on the spot. Thank you.
John, would you mind restating what we've done with the memo with the police department?
So at the end of last year, the CCRB entered into a memorandum of understanding with the NYPD. So that when we make a request for evidence that in a matter that is being investigated by the Force Investigations Division, or FID, which is the generally investigates the most serious uses of force by members of the NYPD. In the past, CCRB would have to wait until the investigation was completely concluded, that the police commissioner had signed off on that investigation before CCRB could get the paperwork in that matter. But pursuant to the MOU, within 90 days of us making a request now, the department will provide us with the evidence that they're in possession of and that we've requested. And the department is treating those requests as ongoing. And so if we make a request in an investigation for evidence, and at the time we request that evidence, it's not in the department's possession, but it gets into their possession, they're going to provide it to us. I should have the exact numbers, but I believe there were 35 investigations where we have made requests for evidence pursuant to the MOU since it was signed, and only 2 of them are past 90 days, and one of them was partially responded to, and the other one on the last time I got an update, it was on day 90, and the department, the NYPD legal had the materials and we're copying them and preparing them to come to us. So I think that the MOU we've entered into is working. And so hopefully there will not be investigations that are hampered in the same way that the investigation into the officers in this matter was hampered.
Commendations to you and whatever staff were involved in achieving that result.
Are there any other questions or comments from the members of the board?
Just a happy one.
Mhm.
It's like, and it's great that this happened, but it's like almost on the back of this young man. And I think, you know, if the MOU becomes a particular moral contract, it's not a contract that is being recognized and being respected, we're not going to be able to have any kind of authenticity without autonomy. And it's very important that we look at this and say, because I don't know how everyone else feels, but I almost feel like in a vulnerable spot to being a member of this board, and this atrocious act seems so regular. And if we don't have the ability to find some, I don't want to use wiggle room because it sounds too light in this case, but find some way to identify what is the proper way to fight when we know that they're playing games. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just give some ground rules for the rest of the meeting?
Absolutely.
Just a few administrative reminders. Our office is open for walk-in complaints, but it's also possible to file complaints online at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint, by telephone at 1-800-341-2272, or by calling 311. If anyone online or here wishes to file a complaint right now, we have 3 investigators on hand, ready to take complaints: Jillian Bevins, Emma Steidehar, and Rob Ryan, and also a member of our civilian assistance unit, Yvonne Torres. And then just some ground rules for the rest of the meeting. We're going to limit comments to 4 minutes, whether you are here or online. If you're going to join online and want to participate, please use the raise your hand feature and we will get to you. And that's all I got, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We're going to hear a presentation from our Deputy Director of Outreach and Intergovernmental Affairs, Marua Rigi. Okay, sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Marwa, and I'll be giving a brief presentation. So the CCRB is the nation's largest independent oversight entity over the largest police force in the country. The CCRB investigates, mediates, and prosecutes complaints of misconduct against members of the NYPD. The agency is governed by a 15-member board with 5 seats appointed by the mayor, 5 appointed by the New York City Council, 3 designated by the police commissioner, 1 appointed by the public advocate, and lastly, the chair is appointed jointly by the mayor and city council. So the CCRB investigates abuses of force, authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. So there is an important update that we want to share with everyone. As of on September 9th, 2023, the Office of Management and Budget announced citywide budget cuts. So as a result, the CCRB is no longer able to fully investigate certain cases within its jurisdiction. After careful consideration, effective January 1st, 2024, the CCRB suspended investigating the following: failure to provide the right to know act cards with no other allegations, refusal to provide a name or shield number with no other allegations, discourteous words or actions with no other allegations, threats with no other allegations, refusal to process a civilian complaint with no other allegations, property seizures with no other allegations, forcible removal to hospital with no other allegations, untruthful statements with no other allegations, and lastly, any complaint that has only the above referenced allegations. The CCRB will resume investigating these cases as soon as the city allocates sufficient funding to do so. If a complaint contains one of the above allegations in addition to other allegations that still fall within CCRB jurisdiction, every allegation in the complaint will still be investigated. So, if a person would like to file a complaint or report police misconduct, you can do so by visiting our website, nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. You can also call the CCRB at 1-800-341-CCRB. And remember, if you see footage of misconduct on social media or in the news, you can still file a complaint even if you weren't there in person. There are additional ways to file a complaint. So you can call our hotline, you can call 311, you can visit us at our office. We are located at 100 Church Street, New York, 1007. You can file a complaint on our website, again, at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. You can also DM us on social media. We have the same username, CCRB_NYC, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also mail a complaint into our office at the same address. You can also file a complaint at your local precinct. NYPD is required to accept CCRB complaints at any precinct. You can request a complaint form and a postage-free envelope. If anyone would like to request a CCRB presentation, you can reach out to us at ccrb.nyc.gov. And please be sure to follow us on social media. Again, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, same username, CCRB_NYC. Any questions?
Does the board have any comments or questions? All right.
Okay.
Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will now enter the public comment portion of the meeting, and we will begin with those joining us virtually who would like to make a comment, followed by those who are joining us in person. For those joining virtually, we please ask that you use the raise the hand feature and keep your comments to 4 minutes as you heard before. Okay. Jahai, would you please call on the first person?
We will be hearing from Royce Russell first.
Yes, hopefully I'm unmuted. Thank you for today's meeting. I would say, as the attorney for the Trawick family, I can appreciate the comments that were made here today. Once I heard the makeup of what the board was or what the board is, I would say that mostly I was disappointed in that it was appointments by the mayor and the city council and public advocate, and not really anyone from the community, such as members of the Justice Committee or Until Freedom or Justice NYC. However, hearing the comments that were made in reference to this tragedy, I was encouraged that despite titles and despite appointments, that this board is trying to get to the heart of the matter of the lack of humanity and the lack of justice in this particular case. I've been doing this for a very long time, fighting for those that have been subject to excessive force and wrongful death in New York City, and at a time where I can tell you the CCRB really didn't have any bite. And that has changed, and I can see the bite and I can see the effort, and I commend this current staff for doing almost the impossible, really fighting a fight with one arm tied behind their back, and that being their best arm. It is not beyond the community at large that internal affairs would come back with a decision, or the use of firearm committee, or whatever title you want to give the internal mechanisms of the police department, would come back with no finding against their own. It is the only organization that I'm aware of where those who are police officers have to judge themselves. And how does that work out when you can see the internal conflict? It is also a conflict to see the DA's office play a role in this. But I think the community, and in particular the Trawick family, has been prepared and has been climbing up that hill of understanding that justice may not be on the forefront of this administration, or at least the hearing officer's tablet, and that something like this could happen. What they weren't prepared for, as we look at MOUs and memorandums of understanding of what will happen in reference to statute of limitations of getting evidence, is that maybe we can look at a humanity MOU, which clearly states that when a decision is going to happen, that the family is afforded some time and space to have an understanding of what the decision would be, what the decision may be, and not just have CCRB try to figure that out and try to be a conduit or a liaison to ease the pain of families that suffer the death of a loved one by the hands of the police. That is something that needs to be looked into. Moreover, when I heard the comments of what can this board do, how much can this board play a role in showing its dissatisfaction with the rubber stamp that we have seen throughout history and continues today, where we know that there was infractions and there were violations of patrol guide procedures, where we know there was infractions and violations of just training concerning the emotionally disturbed, and just basic training of de-escalation and safety and isolation and conversation rather than barking orders to an individual, where we know that there was really no threat of violence because you wouldn't be laughing as you take the elevator upstairs to approach the individual for where there's an issue, and where we know that there was no exigent circumstances when you are responding to, at worst, a misdemeanor, and at the very least, an harassment call. And we know that the FDNY was present with this individual, and so therefore he was no threat to those individuals. So why would he be a threat to you? There is something that is systemically wrong with the lack of humanity in this particular case. But what the board can do, or can think about, is making its own statement, and making a statement loud and clear by way of the press and by way of print, of its dissatisfaction, of its lack of understanding how someone can come to this conclusion given the facts that was presented. And when, if ever, will the police department and the internal mechanisms for which it works will hold their own accountability, and speak to the fact that police officers have the ability to resign just before a decision is made one way or the other, and how they get the inside call for everybody else gets a chance to have an understanding of what has taken place, which leads to the lack of transparency among the folks in the community. I'm gonna do my part. The people in the community, in the Bronx community, is gonna hear about this case by way of litigation, and they'll make the determination how much the city will have to pay one way or the other in reference to this man losing his life for no apparent reason. And they'll be the judge of how incestuous the protocol and the procedures within the police department can yield a result where we now change the standards to a criminal standard as to whether or not these police officers should be punished, versus an administrative standard, which is whether or not this young man would still be alive had they followed the police patrol guide. Once again, I'll commend John and his staff, Attorney Applewhite for fighting a good fight, and his staff. There is faith in the CCRB from my perspective that there is bite with the bark, but there's a hill to be climbed. And if the board can make this statement and make the statement loud and clear, that would be helpful. And we all know as board members, we have networks and we have insight to those that are within the power structure that can try to make this family whole in some shape, form, or fashion. And we ask that you use all your power to do that, given the lack of respect and the disrespect and the lack of humanity shown to this family. So thank you for my time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Trawick family, on behalf as a family attorney to this tragedy.
Mr. Russell, for your comments. Once again, our condolences to the Trawick family. Thank you for your strong recommendation for us to make a statement, which we made an initial statement when the decision was made on Friday evening, but we will revisit that as well. And I also wanted to also thank the incredible staff of the CCRB for their work on this case and the continuing work that they do, the hours that they spend and dedicate. And to this board, we all introduced ourselves by saying who our confirmation is from. But this group also represents folks who are leadership coaches, who are educators, who are attorneys, who are social justice advocates. And so that is who also makes up this grouping of people. So I wanted to say that before I asked John if he wanted to add anything to the comments.
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the board? All right, Jahai.
Next, we will be hearing from Chris Dunn.
Barbara, can you hear me? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Chris Dunn. I'm the legal director of the NYCLU. I also want to speak to the Trawick conversation and start by expressing my appreciation that the board is discussing it. There have been too many meetings, in my view, recently where there's not been much substantive discussion. So I'm very pleased to hear this discussion, as tragic as the topic is. And I think the question of what more the board can do is an important question. I think the agency gets enormous credit for what you have done so far in this case. But there is more to be done, starting with today. And Arva, I think that your comments are an important starting point. I also think the notion about the CCRB making a request of the Department of Justice is a terrific suggestion. It's a bold suggestion. Don, I'm not quite sure what you meant by asking Matt about his legal opinion about this, but I certainly want to encourage the board to do that. I think there are two things that are going on here. The first is a question about the department choosing not to discipline these officers. That raises obvious and serious questions. And the department has a terrible track record in cases like this. Daniel Pantaleo having been Exhibit A, and this is now a close second. But beyond that, there's a question about this took 5 years. And on a Friday night, they announced their decision. And whatever one may think about the merits of a particular prosecution or disciplinary action, the way the department approaches these things is very important. The very fact that the process is flawed can completely undermine the legitimacy of the decision, whatever the decision is. And I know the police representatives on the board, I can guess what your views are about the substantive decision. I think it was Frank who was asking the question. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite tell. But I would like to hear what the police representatives think about the process here. And I would like to hear what the police representatives have to say about why it's defensible or appropriate for the department to have taken 5 years to decide this, because I think that while there are many people who are upset and rightly upset about the ultimate decision, I think almost everybody will be asking questions about about the process and how in the world it could have taken 5 years. And what does that mean about the department's approach to this? And what does this mean about the department's actual interest in accountability? So I would like to hear from the police representatives about their views about why it would have taken 5 years to come to this decision. And I want to urge again the suggestion that the board make a request to the Department of Justice that it look at this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. I appreciate that. And I wanted to see if the police representatives did want to make a comment, or if you all wanted to. Go ahead, Frank, please.
Am I on? Am I on? Yeah. The only comment I can make without having a chance to go back and go through the record, I don't remember. John, maybe you remember. When did we look at this case? Was it 1.5 years ago? I remember going through the case, but I just can't remember the time and date. The one thing I will say from experience is that it's long been the policy to wait for the prosecutors and in the individual boroughs or the federal prosecutors to finish their work proceeding. And Mr. Dunn, you certainly, as a member, as an attorney, understand why that is. But without having the chance to go through the record, and I can't speak to the specifics, but certainly in a lot of these cases, they wait until the prosecutors say, we have completed our review, we have no objection to the police department proceeding.
No, honey. Charlie, did you want to?
Yeah, I think I can echo what Mr. Dwyer said. And again, with not having been a member of the board during the time this case was investigated, and also not knowing all of the reasons why there were delays. Some of the delays do relate to referrals to other agencies. That does not excuse other delays, but again, until there's a complete review of the record, I can't really speak to the delays, but I think the board has spoken when it relates to this board's position about delays that are unnecessary.
So just to answer Mr. Dwyer's question, Mr. Treywick was killed on April 14th, 2019. The board voted in June of 2021. But our investigation only lasted 5 months. So we probably were finally given the evidence we needed to conduct our investigation in January of 2021.
Unless anyone has any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and ask Jahai to call on the next person.
There are no more hands raised for the public comment section online. So that will conclude public comment online.
Thank you. For those joining us in person and are interested in making a public comment, if you could please line up behind the podium, and we're going to ask you to please keep your comments to 4 minutes.
I'm Michael Myers, President, New York Civil Rights Coalition. First of all, I want to say that a month or so ago, I was with the mayor. I'm very rarely with the mayor. I don't like him, for the record. But this was an anti-Semitism rally. He showed up to speak. He spoke for more than 3 or 4 minutes, I can tell you that. So in the short time that I have, I didn't have the time or the inclination to speak to him then about the acting chair. What is the delay in getting a permanent chair of the CCRB? I think, I shouldn't say this because I'm nonpartisan. I shouldn't say this, but I think your acting chair has been doing a terrific job. So if you're going to be doing anything today, how about sending a letter to the mayor saying, what's the delay in appointing a permanent chair for the CCRB. This is important to the public, not just to this committee, and not just to the chair. So I want to briefly say in my passing time that I recommend excellence as a rating for our chair, acting chair, as well as for the executive director. What you continue to do here is beyond me. I don't understand the courage, and I have no courage. But your courage, given the political situation in this city, and given the power of the police department to stand up for themselves, but nobody's speaking up for us, for the public, other than this board. And this board is already at least partially divided. I mean, how can Chris Dunn call up on the police representatives? You're not the police representatives on this body. Yeah, you're appointed to the body by police or commissioner, but you're the representatives of the people. This is a civilian complaint review board. Civilian complaint. So, we don't care about the police department's viewpoint. And I'm disgusted that the legal director of the NYCLU should think that you have a different point of view in terms of your public responsibility as a member of this committee, this board. CCRB, I recommend again that the CCRB understand what's going on in the streets. I don't ever hear anything about what's going on on the subways, on the streets, the marches, the rallies. There's nobody in the CCRB there. There used to be. CCRB used to represent, like the NYCLU represent, used to come to the rallies and marches and wear their bands so there would not be disgraceful, disrespectful conduct on the part of the police department towards the protesters and demonstrators. So I suggest that CCRB reintroduce going to these rallies, going to these marches, so that can be control on the street corners and on the sidewalks and in the subways. There should be some sort of control, some monitoring, some surveillance of the police department by you guys, not just the civil rights community, because nobody listens to us anymore. This CCRB has many ways of serving as a watchdog. So I suggest you be a little more resourceful in terms of how to be a watchdog. Directly observe the police officers. So it's not just my word against them or the persons in the streets' word against them. You're going to be there, providing your own testimony. Not you personally, but your representatives will be present as the watchdogs. I have to say also that the police on the subways, I see them not monitoring the subways, not watching the cars in the subways. They're talking. They're yakking, playing around. They're not supervising themselves. And I don't see anybody monitoring the bad behavior in the subways, at least in terms of police department. And I watch. Every day I'm on the subways. And they're standing there congregating with each other on the platform, talking. Now you're looking in the subway car when the train comes to the station. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. As far as the MOU was concerned, yeah, with all respect, Mr. Executive Director and Madam Acting Chair, we don't need another MOU. Those things are paper thin. Paper thin. The police department, the police commissioner knows what they're supposed to do, and they just don't do the right thing. I am so upset with the case that you have brought to our attention, Mr. Executive Director. I'm so upset by that because they knew what they should have done. The administrative law judge should have done better, but nobody's criticized her. What the hell is going on here? People know the facts. They have the evidence, and they still delay. And they delay and delay and delay until time's up. And we got to have the chair of the CCRB or the acting chair of the CCRB, the executive director of the CCRB who serves at the pleasure of you-know-who. They got to remind them and goad them and criticize them. Nobody can criticize the mayor. Nobody can criticize the police department like the people who are in charge of the mayor and the police department. The people are in charge of the mayor, and the mayor is in charge of the police department. Do something or resign.
Thank you for your comments.
Wow, it's hard to follow that, but yeah. Prevention is far better than the cure. Oh, thank you. My name is Mari Moss, and I want to talk to you about how our police are dealing with, last time I was here, the police dealing with domestic violence in our city. And this is for Catherine Kasanoff and all women mothers who have stood up for themselves in times of injustice and paid dearly for it. And like I said, the last time I was here, I was talking about how police had handled a domestic violence situation. When I think about our police, we, the people, we expect our police to protect and serve, and to do that honorably. The word honorable means to have some morals, to have some values, and to have some integrity. And sometimes our police seem to be lacking that. And what I have seen, though, since the last time I was here, is an improvement in some of our police who are trying to do what's right and have some humanity and have some morals and some values. But if police had done the right things from the very beginning, and I'm talking about a personal situation in 2017, there are so many things that could have been prevented today. We put a lot of our faith and trust in our police, and this body is the watchdog body that is supposed to make sure that our police are acting in the proper ways. And this is about saving lives. This is about our future generations. And this is about making sure that our young people, and especially mothers, women who are dealing with domestic violence, anybody who's dealing with domestic violence, has their rights protected now into the future. And this is important for our society. So I'm just asking that you all please do everything that you can to ensure the safety of our people, and especially in domestic violence situations. And I did, and I'm just going to end this with this. I sent a letter to the mayor's office and I said they need to make Arva Rice the chair of the CCRB. No more delays. We need action. Thank you.
Just respond real quick. Victims of domestic violence are one of a number of groups who are very vulnerable when they encounter police. And so our agency makes a real effort to understand the trauma they are facing when they come to us, and to make sure that we are treating them in a way that does not re-traumatize them, while still taking their complaint seriously and moving forward with our investigation of their complaint. So you mentioned that you had a personal situation, and if there's someone you would like to speak to here, we have a staff here that would be happy to do so. So just if you tell us, we'll be right there.
Thank you, Joan. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? If you want to step to the podium?
Good afternoon. I'm here just for actually for point, I have to start with NYPD. The problem start. I'm sorry. My name is Ibrahim Hamid, and I have, by the way, a case in CCRB. Was actually more than one, but the real one is this happened in I believe November 26, 23. The problem we have is not starting from CCRP. The problem starts from NYPD. NYPD follow every single one if they don't have, and every single one making complaint for the CCRB. Two things we have: close the case or no action. And even if the case have something, there's no action. That's what they give the power to NYPD in the street to do whatever they want to do for the public. I personally got hurt inside my apartment. I got hurt. And I have a problem in my kidney. I can't even find a lawyer to take my case to the court because every single way I go,
This person has a case before the CCRB that ultimately is going to be judged by 3 people on this panel now. Should we be discussing this?
no, I'm not saying this. I'm just saying general. I said, I'm not saying about my case. I'm saying general. The problem starts with NYPD.
Right.
Because if we have an action for every single case, go to CCRB, and they find out that this person or this police officer is guilty, and we have an action, the other will never do this. I won't have no action. A lot of people get hurt, complain, making complaint. I just want to let you know, most of the people when they get hurt, not all of them they go to CCRB to make a complaint. Some of them. And some of them, most of these people when they make a complaint to CCRB, 2 things. Sometimes you ask, case is closed or no action. What do you expect for NYPD to do with the public in the street? I'm right or wrong? So the problem starts with NYPD. If we have an action for every single person, make a problem, actually making serious things to any person, we don't see nothing. The only thing show up in the public, 2 things. When you come in a newspaper or somebody got dead or killed. Did you see anyone, one from the public got hurt or got beat up from NYPD and something happened or any action come to this person? No. Only things comes in show up, in show in a case for the people get dead, get killed, got shot. That's what you guys talk about, but you don't talk about the other. What happened to the people got hurt and nobody knows about them? Nobody knows about them. Even if you make a complaint, the complaint has already been closed. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you have any comment based on this.
I do, Mr. Hamid. So if you want to speak, ma'am, you can, but can I just say one thing first? So the CCRB investigates all the cases in its jurisdiction, except until recently, as Marwa described, there are certain types of complaints that we just don't have the resources to investigate now. But until January of this year, if you came to us with a complaint, we would look at the allegations, and if they're in our jurisdiction, which is governed by the charter and the CCRB's rules, then we will investigate it. And sometimes we will substantiate misconduct, and sometimes we won't. But we look at every complaint that we get that's within our jurisdiction, except now, because of the budget situation, there are certain complaints that we just can't look at. The complaints we get that are not within our jurisdiction, we refer to the appropriate investigatory body. Sometimes we get complaints that are not about the NYPD. Sometimes they're about the Marshal Service or ICE or the different, like CUNY has its own police or court officers. And so we will refer those complaints to the right body to do an investigation. But when we get complaints about the NYPD that aren't within our jurisdiction, we refer them to the NYPD. And so one of the things, because someone else had recently brought to my attention, difficulties that folks have when they make a complaint to us that we then refer to the department because they're outside our jurisdiction, how they can follow up with the department. So internally, our staff is looking at a way to streamline the process so that folks can better able follow up with the department on complaints that have been made to us that are outside our jurisdiction. Ma'am, if you wanted to speak. No. Oh, but we
Are here to see something. If you feel something is there in our session, it's supposed to be speak. But since he stopped us, I feel really like afraid.
So just to be clear, if you're just speaking about the general topic, that's one
You
thing.
can tell me. Good afternoon first, and my name is Asma Abdallah, but I'm not sure if this one it will be like I supposed to be speak or not. But if we can make it as a general, that is fine. But because I don't understand this, so I am here just his first time. I have no idea about anything. The only thing I needed, if somebody, so you're gonna set it as general, so I'm gonna try. But first, I can't speak English very well, so I'm gonna try my best to speak better. I have so many issues with the NYPD still until this moment. Is not solved. Even I already contacted the CCRB. Seem like, as he said before, whatever they have and the serious situation, they always transfer to the IB and the IB related to NYPD. So we still keep continuing like that in the circles. And after that, they close it. Even I never heard anyone from the IB told me what's going on, what is the investigation, what's going on, why they close it. Even sometimes they have so many proof, they never listen to us. They listen to themselves and they never got any help from them. Plus the CRB here, even when we have something, when I try to say, I came here before, they said anything related to the misconduct in NYPD is related to us. I said that is fine. And after I did this one with them, the complaint, they never told me what's going on. They said we're gonna transfer it to the other section, and after that we're gonna send it for you, send it like Lara. But I didn't understand anything. It's just like that. And I have more than like 3 cases, or maybe from so many years, I didn't get any solution. Plus, please, if you allow me to speak for 1 minute for something so serious, please just allow to me, even it's not supposed to be I speak. Did you see me like just as person? I am like a terrorist, or I am criminal, or I am crazy, or I'm taking my clothing off like I am really crazy. Just like question. If you see something like that, you can let me go outside because I don't wanna feel bad. Because every single time I'm trying to speak with the NYPD for something happened to me, they told me if you don't like if you like to live here in New York, go back your country. Even the neighbor, they keep continuing to scare me, and they said, okay, go back your country. That is already discrimination. Why? This country is for everybody, not for anyone, just you like it. If you like me, you're gonna leave me like that. If you don't like me, even I did something wrong or I did something right, you're gonna hurt me every single time. And the other thing I want to speak for you, and please try to make it as serious. I have here so many cases in the CCRB. I didn't feel that they're gonna do anything. They're not gonna make any action. Trust me, I live here right now. If I'm gonna call them, they said, okay, we'll transfer it to the IB. Then they're gonna close it like every single time. I'm gonna speak for something private. I don't have to speak it, but please just you can say that I am like anyone from your neighbor, and they're gonna feel sorry for me. We got arrested for nothing. The people broke in my apartment. I tried to call 911. Do you know what happened? The police came, more than 10 people. I don't know why for only woman, they came arresting me. They cut already my shoulder. And when I tried to prove this one, even they took my information, they canceled the appointment for the MRI. Them, not me. And after that, I still have like pain in all my body. I still have like cut, I have torn. No one helping me. Still until this moment, the NYB, they heard in us. Nothing. I wanna know what's going on. Because until this moment, why the woman can be arrested for nothing? And until this moment, no one take action. The NYPD, they living on me till everyone in my apartment, in my neighbor, they keep continuing hurting me. And after that, said, go back to your country. They heard that in the proof, I have video. The police came, they heard my husband for nothing, for nothing. Just as they said, why you broke in her apartment? Why you are into in her apartment? They arrested him too. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And after that, the neighbor now they trying to scare me. They said, okay, we are gonna call your police for nothing. They have the personal numbers. Is that what's supposed to be happening in New York? Supposed to be no one here above the law. Supposed to be no one here above the law. The law is the law. But why the NYPD they always doing something like that? Because no one tried to charge them until we got killed.
Ms. Hamid, so I hear what you're saying. I understand how upset you are, and it pains me that you made a complaint like that to this agency and you feel that we did not treat you properly. So I apologize to you that you feel we did not take your complaint serious. We have investigators here today who will, if you want to speak in the language that you're more comfortable in than English, although I have to say, you seem pretty comfortable in English, we'll get an interpreter so that we can make sure we understand exactly what you're saying.
That is fine. If you don't understand me right now,
No, I understood you, and we're gonna get to the bottom of it. But to do the investigation, we need to take a recorded statement with an investigator, and they're here, and they're gonna do that right now. Right? Excellent. So if you could stand up. Those are the investigators who are going to talk to you right now, and they're going to take your complaints. And if it's about something that we already have, they're still going to take full statements.
even I have proof, I still have the proof, and they keep continuing make something report, fake report for us. I want to see what I have done. If as they said I'm terrorist or criminal or crazy, why is they don't want to show it to us what I have done? Is it supposed to be happening, right?
So,
But like that,
ma'am.
okay.
So one of the things that we do is if we have evidence that you would like us to give to you, then at the conclusion of your case, of our investigation into your complaint, we will provide that material to you. If you provide us with material, we'll provide it to you regardless of what state our investigation is in. But if there's information that we've gathered from the department while we're pursuing your investigation, then we will release it to you if you just email me, frankly, and I will make sure it's taken care of. There's often a delay just because we have one person in our whole agency for the whole city who's in charge of making those FOIL requests, of responding to those FOIL requests. So it takes some time, but we'll make sure you get the information that you're entitled to from us.
Thank you, but if you don't mind, please try to take it as much as you can, like to solve this issue, because until this moment, I wanted to understand why is he doing this stuff for me, and even I get sometimes help from people working with the mayor. Do you know what they tell to them? They surveyed them, and they said that is bigger than you. So how is bigger? Who is? I don't understand. How is bigger? Is that is the NYB? They care everyone, and they said don't get touch with this lady because she's suspicion. Why I'm suspicion? Why?
So
I want to understand why.
So I hear what you're saying, but we have to do an investigation. We can't just make up hearing you.
Because I have proof. I can show it to you right now in front of everybody.
But we have a process, and it's important that you give the information to the investigators, and we'll conduct an investigation.
Thank you.
Okay, man?
Thank you so much.
But you guys should go with them right now. Because they're gonna start right now, the statements. Oh, you want to still, can you guys hold on and wait for, they want to finish the,
The meeting.
no. You can wait.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Any other public comments this evening? All right. Do we have any old business to come before the board this evening? Any old business? Okay. Do we have any new business to come before the board? Yes, Esmeralda.
I wanted to bring up the fact that I have raised before. I have not seen any change. Our jurisdiction has been increased over the last 3 years dramatically. Yet when we talk to the public, we are continuing to use the acronym FADO, which does not include some of the new jurisdiction that we have, some of the new jurisdictional basis for complaints, sexual misconduct by police officers, pattern and practice and profiling by police officers, untruthful statements by police officers, and we also have, refusing to provide an ID card, but I know what's happened with the budget, so we don't have to advertise something we're not going to investigate, all right? I hate to say that publicly, but it's real. I would like for our public announcements to let people know that our enlarged jurisdiction, about our enlarged jurisdiction, and make sure that they know that they can file complaints against police officers that violate them on any of these grounds, as well as force and the other FADO, I understand that costs money. Everything costs money. So that means that we have to change the video, change some of our handout statements, etc. But I would rather it be accurate and let people know it exists than for us to continue to go by what we had and continue to have, but only limited to what we used to have. So that's what I would like all of our communications to the public to iterate the fact that we now have an enlarged jurisdictional area on which people could file complaints.
Good enough.
And that's no complaint against the wonderful outreach team for doing everything they can. I want them to be able to, as well, not to be able to, I want them to explicitly make those comments when they're talking to the public.
Thank you, Esmeralda, for that. It is true. We very much have expanded our jurisdiction over the course of the last couple of years, and FADO may not be as inclusive as it has been in the past. So I think that that's something that we should be taking up and having more conversation about.
So if I could quibble like a lawyer as I still am, our jurisdiction, except for the expansion by the city council to allow the CCRB to investigate untruthful statements made to the CCRB, is still abuse of authority. What has changed is that both the CCRB and the city council have expanded what is considered abuse of authority. And so I think while I did have a small quibble, the idea that we need to change how we communicate with folks so that the extent of abuse of authority is more broadly understood. No question about that, Ms. Simmons, and it's something that the chair has brought to my attention recently, and I've been speaking to the outreach team and to the comms team about it, but it's going to take us some time on our public messaging to pivot, and because it's important to change in a constructive way that is actually makes it better rather than change that doesn't actually effectively communicate what we want to communicate.
Well, I'm dealing with communication issues on other projects, so I understand that completely. But I do not believe that the public, when they hear abuse of authority, naturally go to pattern and practice, sexual misconduct. And since we had that acronym, since we had abuse of authority jurisdiction before, once it's been expanded, I think we have to be explicit about expanded. We can say, and our abuse of authority has been expanded to include,
100%.
but it has to be said, because people are thinking we don't have the jurisdiction. If we don't tell them, they won't know.
And I think when I was speaking with Jahai about this, and when we are doing presentations that are longer, not what's here being done for the board meetings, they more fully go into how I can see one of our outreach people nodding at me. They do more fully explain how the abuse of authority encompasses more than it used to. But from a legal point of view, which is important from when you're thinking about whether the agency is acting within its legal jurisdiction, while the abuse of authority has its definition has changed and grown, it's still abuse of authority.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions on that? Okay. Interesting. Any other new business? Any other new business this evening? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move now that we're going to break into executive session. The agenda for the executive session is the board will hear from the executive director about pending personnel actions, and the general counsel will provide updates regarding pending litigation. Would like to make a move to, like to accept a motion. Okay, do I have a second? All right, so moves. We're going to conclude that the public session for the board meeting for April is at conclusion. Thank you.